time. So I will also put this on Google Classroom. When I begin shading, what pencil do you think I start with? What pencil do you think I start with?
4H.
You got it. I start with my 4H. Now, something I also need to make sure of is when I'm drawing, that I keep my hand on a piece of paper so I don't smudge all over the place. So I'm going to begin here on this petal. And what I'm doing is just a very light, gentle circles around the sides of the flower here, around the sides of the petal, because I want that to feel integrated to the flower. And as I'm coming up here on the edge, I don't know if you can see that, I'm going to leave a little space. And that's going to be a subtle highlight right in there. I don't want to make it too overt. I want to make sure it's somewhat subtle, coming right down the sides. And I'm using my 4H. So this is kind of our base layer of our flower. Getting that gently put in. You can't ever like scribble or rush this, because if you do, it does not turn out well. And if you take your time, it'll show that you care, and I'll be able to tell that you tried and took your time. Now I'm continuing down the rest of this flower with the 4H, but I'm just gently, subtly adding value. You can see here I'm being mindful of a little highlight in there. I don't know if you can tell that on the smartboard, but just getting a little bit more in there. All right, now I'm going to go to what pencil do you think? 2H, gold star up front. Gold star. All right, going to my 2H. If I can find my 2H in my pencils, there it is. Now, here is where I want to start figuring out where the veins are, those little kind of subtle lines or the folds in your flower. So I'm gently pulling that line, and I'm making it harder. Can you kind of see it? Pulling that line out a little bit more. And now I've got that line. That feels good. What do I use after my 2H? What's the next pencil? I could use a number 2 pencil, or I could use my 2B. I'm going for my number 2. So at the base here, I'm going to get a little bit darker. I'm pulling out some other lines, and I'm just going to gently do some we're going to do some implied lines. So I'm not necessarily going to draw the line straight through. I'm just going to do some subtle lines through the flower. Does that make sense so far? Yes? Now I'm going to jump to what's my next pencil? I'm going to go to my 2B. And then I can go in there to the base and pull some darker values out. So there's that petal. Now most likely I will come back to this petal a little bit later with just a gentle blending stump through it. Just some subtleties just to get that to look more, just have a little bit more value to it. But I don't want to overdo it. Now you'll notice the petal behind it is just value. There's no detail in it. It's just subtle value. So I would do that for all my petals. Now these little ones down here, I am just going to take my number 2 pencil and I'm just going to darken them up, kind of outlining them. And I can take my 2H, or I can take my 4H, whichever one I prefer, and I'm just going to put a little dot on the inside to add a little value to it. I don't want to overdo it. So see how that kind of comes together? So it's I don't want to say arduous, but you have to be thoughtful and you can't rush it. So as I continue here, I'm going to darken up some of these dots, the inside of the flower, and I'm just using my 2H. Now, comparatively here, they're smaller on the inside, and as we work our way out, they get larger. So I am just, you can see here on the inside, the 2H doesn't cut it. So I have to go up to probably my number 2 or my 2B. And just to get that variety of texture. Now, as I'm doing it, I am leaving some space. I'm not necessarily doing all the circles. I'm getting some negative space left in there so I don't have to always do that. Is that helpful to see? Okay, I'm going to hit stop on that. I will